Listeners, NerdWallet wants you to let them do the work for you. Looking for auto insurance? The Nerds will match you with top providers in your area in just a few questions. So getting the right rate for you is as simple as going to nerdwallet.com. After all, letting NerdWallet do the work is more than smart. It's genius. Not all applicants will qualify for the lowest monthly payments. NerdWallet Insurance Services, Incorporated. California resident license number OK92033. DirecTV is a better way to watch whatever you want to watch. We all know the frustration and confusion that comes from endlessly scrolling, trying to find your favorite shows. DirecTV brings together your live TV and apps into one home screen, helping you avoid the hassle of plugging in passwords again and again or wasting time searching for what to watch across platforms. With DirecTV, you spend more time watching and less time searching for your show. Sign up for DirecTV today at directtv.com.
If you're really growing and helping people and developing your life and finding your purpose and your God calling and reaching your potential, you will never have a day that you won't be criticized. You will never have a day that there's not someone that will want to take you and bring you back down in the basket. It's a fact of life. Nehemiah said, I am building a wall. If you're doing something so big, what the little people say won't distract you, because you're so in love with the wall that you're building that you just say, I can't come down today. I'm building a wall. Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Rach. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. And I have a favor, which sounds kind of harsh if we just met, but I'm assuming that most of you have been a part of this community for a hot minute. And so I gotta ask, are you subscribed to the podcast? Subscribing to the podcast you listen to regularly is one of the best things that you can do for hosts like me. It helps to support the show and the staff that works on it. It ensures that you never miss an episode when we drop a new one. And here's the cool thing about subscribing. If you do it and then you hate this show, just unsubscribe. It's one click away. In the meantime, if you're listening, we would so appreciate it if you would just tap that button and make it official. Guys, we got a new episode in our Mastermind series today, and we're tapping into the wisdom from our elders. I hasten to even use those words because I think that some people get freaked out by aging, but this group of very wise teachers, I know they wouldn't mind. And I know that because I've had the privilege of getting to sit with all of them over the last decade. And I thought it would be cool to create an episode of people who've lived longer than most of us, people who have wisdom and stories and real life, real world advice. So today you're going to hear from Gay Hendricks and Lamott, Dr. Edith Eger, and my mentor, John Maxwell. Lucky for us, we don't have to wait decades to access their wisdom. We'll explore powerful truths about love, loss, leadership, forgiveness, and living in alignment. Whether you're navigating a new chapter or really just craving more meaning in the day-to-day, this episode is your invitation to slow down, listen deeper, and consider the advice your future self would thank you for taking today.
I was a research psychologist at Stanford right after I'd gotten my PhD. And it was a plum academic job because the guy that I'd been studying under went on sabbatical and kind of named me to step into his place. And so I went from being a Stanford starving graduate student to being a temporary Stanford professor overnight. And it was hallucinatory getting all this suddenly money, and things like that I hadn't dealt with in a long time. But anyway, I was sitting in my office and I was feeling really good about the research we were doing. And I just had lunch with a colleague of mine who was also, we were talking excitedly about our work and everything. And so I came back to my office, and all of a sudden I started worrying about my daughter. And the backstory is that that morning, I had just taken her to her first sleepover camp where she was going to spend the night away from home, 2 nights away from home, actually. And she'd been going to this camp all summer, but it was like, 9 to 4 in the afternoon. But this was a big deal, getting to sleep over for the first time. And she was 5 going on 6 years old. So I started feeling all these worry thoughts, and I called the camp. And I talked to the director and I said, "Hi, this is Gay Hendricks, Amanda's dad. And I was just worried about her. It's her first day at sleepover camp. And I'm worried that she's lonely." And, and the woman was so kind. She chuckled and she said, "Well, Dr. Hendricks, you're the 3rd parent that's called here this morning with similar kinds of concerns." And she said, "I can see out the window. Amanda is out there kicking the ball around, soccer ball with the girls on the soccer field. She looks totally happy to me. So consider that it might be you that feels," and suddenly I say, I have a PhD from Stanford in psychology, and I had not occurred to me to look into myself, but I realized, I said, why did I get that worried when I was feeling so good? And that was the first moment it occurred to me, I have an allergy to feeling good for long periods of time. And so when I feel good for more amount of time than I'm accustomed to, I do something to bring myself back down. And it was really interesting because at the same time, I was beginning to work with really brilliant business executives. It was when Silicon Valley was just beginning to happen. And there were all these amazing high-tech people there at, Hewlett-Packard and, Apple wasn't there yet, but all those kind of companies. They were just brilliant people. And I would be working with them and oftentimes working with them in marriage counseling. And I noticed that they would often have a breakthrough at work, like they get a big raise or have a big attaboy or attagirl at work. And then they'd go home and start a fight that night or have a fight. And I heard the same story, like, "Oh man, Friday, I got the $150,000 bonus. And then I walked in the door and she started on me." And, that kind of thing. And I realized it didn't have anything to do with the content of what happened. It was just the fact that a person was running more energy through themselves than they'd ever run before. They were trying to accommodate more positive energy, and they didn't know how to do that. So they created an argument or an illness or an accident to bring themselves back down to a comfortable level that they felt programmed to live at. And that was a stunning thing when I began to see it, because I realized I did that all over my life in my relationships. I hadn't met Katie yet, but I was in a relationship then with a woman, and we would do the same thing. We would get along well for 3 days, and then somebody would start to criticize the other one, or we'd have an argument, or something would happen to bring ourselves back down. And so I started calling it the upper limit problem. I noticed another really vivid one too, which once I started focusing on, studying it in myself, I realized that I could feel good for about 3 days eating well, and then I would blow it by going out and eating a bunch of things that that weren't good for me, or, sitting there at night with some friends eating pizza, the kinds of things that just bring you right down. And so I realized that I used food as an upper limit to how good I could feel. And I particularly had this one moment, which really a lifetime moment, which was I was losing some weight, and I had lost about 30 or 35 pounds. And I was feeling great. And I was walking down the street, and I looked through the window of an ice cream store, and I saw this family of 4 eating this gigantic banana split ice cream sundae. And my eyes popped out of my head, and I ran in there and ordered one for myself, not for a family of 4, but for a family of 1. And I just gorged myself on this thing until I was stuffed. And then for about 20 minutes, I felt like $1 million because of that sugar high. But then 20 minutes after that, I remember actually doubling over on the street. I had such a bad stomachache when that hit me because I went from feeling great, 30 days of eating well and everything to wham. And I started analyzing that. Why did I do that? And I realized the same thing. I felt there was something fundamentally undeserving in me of feeling a full-time flow of love and positive energy and good feeling. So when I would get to that certain level and exceed it, I would shut myself back down. So those were the first times that I began to notice the upper limit problem. You spot where you were just feeling good and now you're worried about one of your kids, so you begin to look at that and spot that. The second thing, though, which is the really important thing to do, is to drop underneath that and ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Because what I discovered is that there are only 3 or 4 big fears that are underneath the upper limit problem. And what happens is we're going along and we get to feeling more good feeling or more love than we're used to feeling, or more money has come in than we're used to. And it trips one of those old fears. And the fear comes up, and then that causes you to do the upper limit thing. The fear comes up, and then you trip and fall, or you get a cold, or you start an argument with your beloved. And so the thing is that there are only a handful of those fears, but they're almost nobody knows they have them. They're kind of hidden fears. And because, I've now had almost 50 years now of talking about this with people all over the world. And it doesn't matter if the person is in Calcutta or in Chicago or where, it's everywhere. People have the same kind of upper limit issues and the same kind of fears. And one of the biggest fears has to do with a feeling inside of being fundamentally flawed in some way, fundamentally undeserving of love, good feeling, wealth, all the good things of life, because the person feels that they've done something or been something that is flawed and therefore disqualifies them from having a flow of love and positive energy in their life. And I want to broadcast to the world here that there are no such things. There are no fundamental flaws. There are just things that have happened to us that we're stuck on, we need clearing up, but that doesn't mean there's anything fundamentally wrong with you. So that's one fear that I work with a lot of people. And surprisingly too, Rachel, that it doesn't matter where you are in the success pyramid. I actually had a person call me with a panic attack, a person from Santa Barbara, who was about to get the next day his palm prints in the Hollywood, and I forget, there was some big celebrity whose palm prints were going to be next to his, but it excited such a panic in him that he felt like he was suddenly awash in those, I don't deserve this. If they really knew who I was, they wouldn't be asking me to put my palm prints down in there. So it excited that old fear of being fundamentally flawed in such a way that he didn't feel like he deserved it. And I remember he came over and we stood out on my front porch for a long time and just talked about this. And I'm really into body-centered kinds of things, like helping people use their breathing and their movement and that kind of thing. And I remember just having him breathe into that fear and just say, yeah, I don't feel like I deserve it, just to be honest about that. And then after 20 minutes or so, it just completely went away because he was willing to face it. Almost everything that needs to get our attention, the first process is to begin to face it in some way. Look at it, just observe it the way it is. And that's oftentimes the key to beginning the whole transformation process.
It reminds me of, and please tell me if I'm on the right track, but it reminds me of those stories you hear where someone wins the lottery and then within not even a year, it's all gone, or
worse sometimes. Yeah. Actually, when I was writing The Big Leap, I studied a whole bunch of different lottery winners, and there are so many horror stories there that I didn't even put all of them in The Big Leap. Yeah. I put on a few. The guy that won $10 million and then got mugged because he was in a bar with $500,000 in his pockets, and he got, I think it was the largest mugging in history. It was something like $545,000. They rolled him outside the bar and got away with $500,000.
Holy
And
smokes.
because he's in a bar talking about winning a lottery and everything like that. So, really amazing things like that. So I forgot exactly the statistics, but within a couple of years, I think about half the people that win lotteries are back to where they are or worse off. And so it doesn't have anything to do with money per se. It's just the blast of energy that gets run through them.
Visiting South Dakota was always one of my someday things. Like, well, someday I'm going to go see the Dakotas, and someday I'm going to walk through Badlands National Park, and someday I'm going to see Mount Rushmore in person. And then a couple summers ago, I just made someday today, and it was awesome. The kids and I had the most amazing time. We went hiking. We saw Mount Rushmore, which is like shockingly more majestic than you think it would be. We had amazing dinners. We stayed in this awesome log cabin in a national park. It was truly one of our favorite family vacations. And I loved it because it was this great blend of seeing a part of the U.S. I'd never seen before and being outside in nature. So maybe it's time you turn someday into today. See why there's so much South Dakota and so little time. Plan your escape at travelsouthdakota.com. I have the New Balance 1080s in 2 different colors. I've got the sort of minty green moment and I've got the white moment because, you need it for the outfit. The New Balance 1080 is the ultimate daily trainer, combining reliable comfort with top-tier performance. Whether you're logging miles or running errands, the 1080 seamlessly transitions from the coffee shop to the grocery store, offering versatility from everything from everyday to race day. The New Balance 1080 midsoles offer cushion support, and I mean it, you guys. It's like bouncing on top of a cloud. Featuring a lightweight and breathable mesh upper, the New Balance 1080 keeps your feet cool and fresh throughout every run. Shop the 1080 at newbalance.com.
Well, I wrote 4 novels to begin my career. I was very blessed to get my first one published when I was 26. It was called Hard Laughter, and it was a novel about my father's and the family struggle with his metastatic brain cancer, because there were no books in the library about a family going through it with any grace or humor. And so at that point, I began telling my writing students, who I had right away, write what you'd love to come upon, write what you need. So I wrote these 4 novels, and then I had a baby by myself, absolutely dirt poor, and I did what you do. I went to the library and the bookstore to find a book about being a poor single mother who did this with a modicum of grace and humor. Nothing. They were all just this happy horseshit about how that made it sound like a Hallmark card, which it really isn't, a Hallmark movie. And so I wrote the book I wanted to come upon that said, God, it can be so boring some days. God, you're going to get in touch with your rage. And I wrote stuff like, tonight I'm thinking about wrapping up the baby really carefully in blankets and leaving him outside just for one night so I can get some sleep. And other mothers were like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Or in operating instructions, I wrote, oh God, now he's raising his loathsome reptilian head. And this was not in the other baby books, but mothers and fathers are going, God, thank you, because it gave them permission to have real feelings and for their experiences not to freak them out.
Yes.
And so then I'd been teaching writing by then for years. And I thought about, what if I could do the same thing for writers? Because all the writing books out there said, well, if you do this and you have a deadline and a plot treatment and you do this, then you will almost certainly find an agent, and the agent will find a publisher, and then you'll be happy all the time and you'll have really great self-esteem and you will have arrived. And not a word of that was true. You know, I've always told my writing students, you're going to be more mentally ill when the book comes out than you are right now, because it's going to trigger all of your trauma.
Yes.
It's going to trigger your early childhood stuff of neglect and of being misunderstood. You're going to get some terrible reviews. I got a review 2 books ago that said this latest spiritual collection is like sitting, talking in the backyard over the fence with one of the Kardashians, right? It was my 18th book, and it wasn't like that. And so I just tell people it's not out there. The self-respect is an inside job. Now, the writing can give you everything you've ever dreamt of. It'll give you, it's like a calling to the monastery, you know? You do it every day. You do it by prearrangement with yourself. You do it as a debt of honor that for some reason life or God or whatever, or your DNA gave you a thirst to immerse yourself in the writing life, to write and read, to read all the great writers so that you can see how they do it, how they get time to pass, how they differentiate characters in dialogue, whatever. And so I decided to write the book that I would have loved to come upon when I was a young writer. And that's how I wrote Bird by Bird. I really wrote it using the format of it being a 10-week writing workshop or something vaguely like that. But everything I thought might help, like the hugest block any writer has to come upon, besides the self-loathing and the raging ego, is perfectionism.
Yeah.
That a lot of us were raised to know what we're doing, which no writer, and I'm sure including you, knows what they're doing until you have finished an incredibly shitty first draft.
Yes.
How could you know?
Yes.
Right? The material knows what it is, but it doesn't have hands. So it entrusts you and you get it down. And when you have a shitty first draft, to me, that's a miracle. Then you can push back your sleeves and it's starting to be more fun because it's not blank paper and an unassaulted ice flow. And I always urge my students to print out stuff, over print out and then send money to the Sierra Club. But do an edit on paper with sharpened pencils.
Yes.
Because that sharpened pencil, graphite on paper is an ancient sound and it connects us to all writers over all time. My son has a collective called awritingroom.com, and on it, and I'm on there a lot. I do all these classes. I did a bird by bird book club over 5 weeks, but I say 2 or 3 things. I say shitty first drafts. I say no matter what, finish it. Finish it. Don't let your mind tell you it's not. Don't let your mind tell you anything and figure it out is a bad slogan. And the third thing is you need somebody else to read it for you. That's why a writing room, they're reading for each other. They're saying, finish it. They're saying, you promised me, Rachel, that you were going to get me 7 finished pages by Monday so that I can read them for you. And then we'll talk on Tuesday. But I actually don't have them in my hand. And I don't mean this to be, stressful, but I'm wondering when I can expect those pages. And that's what 500 people are doing for each other. And I have a brilliant husband and a brilliant best friend. And I say to them, you've got to have people to read your stuff for you because your bad self-esteem and your raging narcissism are going to tell you things that aren't true. And by the end of a draft, your eye is just glancing off all the blind spots and all of the overwritten and the fact that there are 40% too many descriptive words. I'm sure you're fine, Rachel. For me, I can take out about a quarter of it just by taking out descriptions and adverbs,
Yes.
The hardest part also is that anybody who's a writer worth their salt is really shy and sensitive and introverted, no matter how public your public life is. But God, to get a bad review is just devastating.
Yeah.
The first review I got for Hard Laughter, not that I memorized it, but I was 26 and it was about my dad who had died in the meantime and my family. And it was funny and it was deep. Because there weren't books then about cancer. It was like unseemly in the 70s. And the first review I got was Publishers Weekly. And it said, whatever meager charms this writer displays are ruined by the constant show-offy overkill. And that was my first review. Now, many of your listeners don't know about the mail, but this came by mail from New York about 6 days later at night. Now, I was still drinking at the time. It was 6 more years, so I quit drinking. But it came in the mail. And so all I can say is that if you get published, you're going to get some terrible reviews. And I'm positive that it's devastating for you.
Yep.
And you tell other people, well, you know what? You just got to shake it off. I got a review 3 days ago from the Wall Street Journal, and I got these reviews everywhere else that sounded like my husband wrote them, right? And then I got, but those don't count. And then I got one from the Christian Science Monitor. And I hate to mention that their readership has fallen to a very, very low of 56,000. However, I got a review and it said, Lamott is preaching to the choir with this new book. It's called Somehow. It's her 20th book, and she's still going on and on about little California's thoughts and sayings and thoughts on God and thoughts on her. And it went on and on and on. And I just could not turn away. It was like Cobra hypnosis. You know, I was just going, wah, wah, wah. But then what I did was look up the circulation, which regrettably has tanked. And that helped me a little bit. People feel extremely scared and sad, mostly on behalf of their younger ones. And so I wanted to write a book for my son, who's almost 35 now, and my grandchild, who's almost 15 now, that would be in one place, everything I know that has ever worked before during the darkest, scariest times of our collective lives, our family lives, our intimate personal lives, and to leave behind for them when I'm gone. So I started writing these pieces, and they were about community, and they were about that radical self-love when somebody meaningful to you rejects you. How do you get out of that hole? And they were about those sorts of predicaments and stories. I was going to call it PS because there were stories I hadn't told. And all of a sudden I realized everything was about some facet of love or not. And all of a sudden I was writing a book on love. Now, I said to you earlier that even for me, a native Californian who has never lived anywhere else, it was too California for me. But then I thought of the title Somehow, because the truth is that somehow, against all odds, love bats last. And that we fall, we slip on the cosmic banana peel, we go through an absolutely and truly unsurvivable loss. And there's no happy horse shit or nice Christian bumper stickers that do any good then, but love does. And love comes up really close to us, and it might be your best girlfriend, or it might be your dog. It might be something you saw on Twitter, and it reaches down for you, and it helps you get back to your feet at some point, and it dusts you off. And if you have to sit right back down again, it sits down with you. And love, in the form of whoever sees you in your absolute sorrow and grief and unokayness, doesn't give you advice, doesn't try to get you to feel better than you can. It just loves you. And that love is ultimately, well, you know, Einstein said there's exactly one thing. There's only energy, right? Everything is energy moving at different speeds. This table, your little dog, a 5-year-old. And I just believe, as a person on a spiritual path, that energy is love. That if you look around, you'll see it. It might not be instantly lovely to look at, but you'll find it if you know to look for it.
I have the New Balance 1080s in 2 different colors. I've got the sort of minty green moment, and I've got the white moment because, you know, you need it for the outfit. The New Balance 1080 is the ultimate daily trainer, combining reliable comfort with top-tier performance. Whether you're logging miles or running errands, the 1080 seamlessly transitions from the coffee shop to the grocery store, offering versatility from everything from everyday to race day. The New Balance 1080 midsoles offer cushion support, and I mean it, you guys. It's like bouncing on top of a cloud. Featuring a lightweight and breathable mesh upper, the New Balance 1080 keeps your feet cool and fresh throughout every run. Shop the 1080 at newbalance.com. Mother's Day is coming up, and that means a little Mother's Day gift. I love all sorts of things, but one of my favorites is jewelry, and Pandora is perfect for just that. So Pandora has all sorts of iconic jewelry, from their charms to necklaces, rings, earrings, and so many other items. There's a million ways that you can thank your mom or maybe buy yourself a little something this Mother's Day. Also, Pandora has in-store engraving. So wouldn't it be so fun to go to brunch and then go to Pandora for custom engraving? Like literally you could have something written in your handwriting and get it engraved on the jewelry. You can find out about all the fabulous things they have by visiting Pandora in-store or online at pandora.net.
You're not clicking well with your body and your mind and your spirit. And that's what you want. You want congruency and listening to your inner voice, listening to your self-dialogue. So when you get up in the morning, you say, Rachel, I love you, I honor you, and we're going to decide what kind of a day we're going to have, that you take complete charge of your thinking, feeling, and your behavior. None of the positive thinking does any good unless it's followed with a positive action. See, so that's why I tell people, especially mommies who tell you, Rachel, you're such a beautiful girl, but you're a little fat and a little pimply. So you see, you cancel everything before the but. I say, give me the but, I give you an and. Yes, and furthermore, so that we really are able to say anything. But before we do, ask ourselves, is it kind? Is it empowering someone or depleting? And if it's not, then don't say it. I practice it with my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, that they see me as not a yes-but person, but a yes-and person. So I think that is difficult to really do sometimes. But, you ask yourself two very simple questions. What am I doing now? And secondly, is it working? Is it getting me where I want to go? And if it's not, you can rewrite your script. It's not the 10 Commandments written in the wall. And you can just say and pick and choose the kind of things that would be your way of life. Because we give up our true self early on. We become the responsible one, the funny one, just like Shakespeare put you kind of on a stage and they give you, and you give up your genuine Rachel girl, and you want to reclaim that. I needed to go back to Auschwitz to reclaim my innocence and assign the shame and the guilt to the perpetrator, because there is no forgiveness without rage. You got to go through the rage. I look at forgiveness in a very different way. I am very biased on one word, freedom. If you don't forgive, you don't have freedom. So give yourself a gift, because in the Bible it says you go through the valley of the shadow of death. So if you are in a dark tunnel, you look for the light, that you want your freedom. So it's not that you're such a good person, you forgive for what they did to you. It's not that at all. We don't have godly powers to forgive, but you can forgive you for putting judgment on another person.
Oh, wait, okay. Explain
That's
that.
how you look
Explain
at
that
it.
to me, because I love that. So
Well,
you're
I
saying,
explain it to you because I speak at churches. So in church, I talk about Jesus. I talk about the poor little Jewish boy who became the prophet. And three things I mention. One is love thy neighbor as thyself. Now, if you don't love you, then why should I love you?
Yes.
If you don't like to be with you Saturday night, why should I want to be with you? So everything starts. We come to this world alone and we die alone. And so do you live a lifestyle? That means to have really passion and joy and love and purpose in your life. Lots of peace. Lots of peace. So for that, you have to give up perfectionism, because we're human, we're fallible, we make mistakes, and accept yourself. It takes courage to be average. It takes courage not to make an A plus in school all the time. I ask people, when you give up something, you have to replace it with something else. I usually tell people that I began to drive a car when I was 17 in Czechoslovakia, and I had a stick shift. And you may not know such a car.
I do.
But it starts to talk to you when you have to switch gears.
Mm-hmm.
But if I switch gears, I have to release the clutch. So you can not change anything unless you replace it with something else. And change is synonymous with growth. Yet we go back and do the same thing. The other thing I appreciate about Jesus is that he knew how to talk to people on their level. So if I see a child in my city going to the Balboa Park and standing at the tree and crying, I'm not going to ask, why do you cry? And I don't get into that, but I get down to the child's level and speak the language of an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old. I don't tell her about cognitive dissonance, because I meet that child and speak the language where they are, and I teach compassionate listening and empathy, which is different from sympathy. Sympathy means, it's very different thing, but empathy means I crawl under your skin and be there with you and keep that feeling. And the way you do that, it sounds like you're sad about that, instead of trying to figure it out. Men always want to figure things out. Men want to understand everything. And I go down and I say, sounds like you're sad about it. So I take you to the feeling level, because you cannot heal what you don't feel. And there is no healing without grieving. And you cry. You cry and you cry and you cry. And one day, 2:00 in the morning, you say, enough. And not say, why me, but what now? And the biggest concentration camp is right in your own mind. So think about your thinking. Now, the last thing I'm going to say, that when Jesus said, turn the other cheek, I thought that was really brilliantly said, not to go back and do the same thing continuously and expecting different results, but you look at the same thing from a different perspective. And that's why the word opportunity to me means a great deal, because everything in life is an opportunity to discover our inner resources and look at the same thing from a different perspective. I studied Latin, so I'm quoting something my professor told me, that times are changing and we are changing with the times. So that's very important, that the way it was in the Midwest 30 years ago, people are waiting for the good old days, that you can trust anybody, you can leave your door open. I was robbed a couple months ago with all my jewelry. Someone said that they want to fix my water, and I let them in. So, yes.
So times are changing.
Everything worthwhile is uphill. Everything. I mean, if those listening to us today have a great relationship with their spouse or with their children, it's because they worked on that relationship. It didn't come easy. There were all kind of adjustments, changes, compromises that had to happen. Everything worthwhile. Relationships, if you're building a business, and you're an entrepreneur and you're starting off trying to work a career, it's uphill all the way. So when people say, what have you got a secret to your success? I say, yes, it's perseverance, it's hard work, it's consistency. It's uphill, and it's not uphill part of the way, Rachel. It's uphill all the way. So here's what happens. A long time ago, I realized there's a difference between people who win and people who don't win. And in my kind of caustic, sarcastic days younger, I used to call them the difference between a winner and a whiner. You see, a whiner wants to feel good before they do something. And a winner wants to do something so they can feel good.
Ooh, yes.
And there's a world of difference between those two kinds of people. And if I'm waiting for, something to just kind of motivate me or something to kind of like pick me up before I go do what I need to do, I'll never do it. It's an issue of if I do the right thing, I get the right response. If I do the wrong thing, I get the wrong response. And so when it comes to your growth and to your development, there's a, because we're people of faith, there's a little scripture verse I take out of context all the time. And that is when I'm going through one of those difficult times and it's not easy and things aren't going my way. And I know that I'm in the game and I know that I'm on the right track, but it's just, it doesn't seem like I'm making any advancement. I use that little phrase, again, totally out of context, and that is, this too shall pass. This will pass. It'll pass.
Yeah.
This is not a good day for me. It's a rough day. I'm in some basic training here. I'm learning from some mistakes. I've taken a couple steps, but this too will pass. It'll pass. Stay on track. Stay consistency, because consistency compounds, Rachel. It compounds. Yes. And when we consistently do the right thing, we someday reap some major, major reward for it. But it doesn't compound in the first week or the first month. And that's why people having the ability to stay in the game and stay with it are the ones who come out of the game as the big winners. And I know that's what you've done in your life, and I know that's what you want to for all of your friends, all the people that you write to and minister to and love and care about and do these podcasts with. That's what you want for them, and I know that's what I love about you, Rachel. You always put your people first. I love that about you. Rachel, we misunderstand success and recognition of success. So you take some young lady who has just graduated from college, so she's going across the stage to get her diploma. Her family's waiting on the other side. They've got flowers. They've got gifts. They're going to go out and have dinner. They're going to party. And they're hugging her and kissing her and jumping up and down and taking pictures. And they're saying, congratulations, congratulations. You made it. You're a success. You're a college graduate. Let me tell you something. That young lady who got that diploma didn't become a success the day she got the diploma. She became a success the day she decided to go to college. She became a success the day she decided to go to class. She became a success the day that she decided to study for the test. She became a success the day she said, I'll go to the second year of school. Every day she's in college on the right track. She's a success right now. It just shows up at the end.
Yeah.
And so when people
good.
when people are going through a difficult time and they say, crap, I'm not doing well today. You're doing very well. You're having a crappy day, but you're doing very well. You're already successful, but here's the point. All the success that she is doesn't get recognized unless she finishes. And so when I am having my difficult times, I focus on not what's happening to me, but what's going to happen for me if I stay the course. And having that long-range look really, I think, keeps us in the game sometimes. Here's what I want to say at the beginning of this. We get excited about our dream, and I love people who have a dream. It keeps everybody in the game. We love the dream. We love the dream, but the dream, we love it because it's free. You can sit around a table and dream about what you want to be someday, what you want to do someday, what you want to accomplish in your life. And you just sit around and get so excited about that dream. And what I've learned is, Rachel, the dream's free, but the journey isn't.
Yeah.
And the moment that I take a step into my dream, now all of a sudden, I've told a person one time, I said, motion causes friction. As long as I don't move, there's no friction. Everybody's happy. In fact, they're happy for me to tell them about their dream. But the moment that I start moving, there are forces that want to keep us from realizing our potential and our very best. And there is a price to pay for the dream. There's a process here that we need to go through. And so when people don't reach their dream, it's not because they don't have a valid dream. It's because they were unwilling to pay a price. I wrote a book several years ago called Put Your Dream to the Test. And I had a life-changing conversation. I was speaking in Las Vegas at a convention, and I was out with some friends for dinner before I was going to speak that night, and I told them I was writing a book on how to put your dreams to the test. And one of the people at the table said to me, he said, John, I have realized the more valid reasons you have to achieve your dream, the higher the odds are that you will. And all of a sudden it hit me how true this is, that if I only have one reason to achieve my dream, maybe I want to be famous or whatever, I don't know what the reason is. If I only have one reason, when I start this journey, because it's uphill all the way and because there are a lot of difficulties and there are going to be people that aren't going to take the trip with me and they're going to criticize me while I'm on it. If I only have one valid reason to achieve a dream, I'll drop out pretty quick. But what happens if I have 7 or 8 good reasons to achieve this dream? Now I've got reasons to stay in the game and to continue to go uphill. And one of the things I realized very quickly when I started to move forward, I love this thought because it's so true. Average people want you to stay average, Rachel.
Yep.
And so here's the moment you say, I think I want to rise above average. This makes every average person nervous. They go, oh my gosh, he's going to leave me. She's going to leave me because I'm going to stay average and I'm not going to pay that price and I'm not going to go to that distance and I'm not going to turn the other cheek and I'm not going to walk the second mile. And so basically they do their best to pull us back down. I had a friend up in New England who was, okay, I started to say a crab hunter, but you can't be a crab hunter. You don't go out and shoot them. But that's a stupid expression. But he got crabs, okay? He went along, he got crabs. He gathered crabs, okay? Whatever it is. He was a crab gatherer, whatever that is. Here's what I want you to know. He told me, he said, John, when I go out and get crabs, when I get 2 crabs, I don't even need a lid on my basket. And I looked at him and said, well, now that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I mean, those crabs have claws. They could climb right out of that basket. He said, no, you don't understand. When you put 2 crabs in a basket, one crab won't let the other crab crawl out. If one crab starts, they'll reach up with that claw and pull them back down. And I thought, oh my gosh, I know a whole bunch of people like crabs. I mean, they're always pulling you back down or saying it can't be done. Or, hey, they're running ahead of you and shutting the door. And if they got a key, they're locking that sucker on you. And they're basically saying, you're going to have to go through me, over me, around you. I'm going to stay in your way because I don't want you to achieve that success. And I'm talking today to a lot of people that you either have someone in your life that doesn't want you to rise above average, or that you're facing something in your life where you're going to have to give a lot more effort, a lot more energy, a lot more thought into getting through it because it's a difficult time. And this part of the uphill journey, it's almost like straight uphill. And I just want you to know that life is not easy and success is even more difficult. And so when people say, well, it's not, life's kind of tough, I say, yes, but let me tell you when it's really tough is when you want to make something with your life.
Woo.
Now you've taken toughness to a whole new level. And then, Rachel, if you want to be a leader, the hill just got steeper. Because now you not only need to climb the hill, but you need to encourage other people to climb the hill. I mean, it's one thing to have a tough life and do it on your own, but it's entirely different to have a tough life and you're helping other people go over these obstacles and over these mountains too. And so all of a sudden, life begins to increase greater. So here's what I know. If you're going through a difficult time, if somebody's criticizing you, if somebody's trying to pull you down, they're that crab in the basket. Here's what I want you to know. That has nothing to do with the fact that you're doing something wrong. It has everything to do with you're doing something right. And so therefore, every day. Every day. Did I say every day? I have adversity. Every day, I have people criticizing me right now while I'm on this podcast. Can I tell you something? I got somebody criticizing me. I got somebody right now. I have somebody right now trying to explain away my success, because little people want to make you little. Have you, Rachel? Have you ever seen? I don't know. Maybe you haven't, but if you go to Russia, there's the top souvenirs, and there's a name for it, and I'm not going to say it right, but it's these Russian dolls.
The nesting dolls.
Yeah, okay, the nesting dolls. That's it. The nesting.
Yeah,
Okay, you got it. Well, you know what the nesting dolls is that you look at one kind of Russian doll, and then you open it up in the middle, and there's another doll on the inside. And you say, oh my gosh. And so you open up in the middle, and there's another one, and another one, another one, until you may have, I don't know, a dozen of them. And the one thing that you know is that every time you open up, the next Russian doll is going to be smaller than the previous one. Mm-hmm. Most people, that's the way they live their life. And they want to make everybody around them a little bit smaller than them. And I learned a long time ago, big people make you feel bigger, and small people make you feel smaller.
Yeah.
And so every time I get somebody criticizing me, now, by the way, let me just say something. It stings. It hurts. I always object to these people who say, well, just don't pay any attention to it. Well, hello, what are you, numb? Are you deaf? Are you dumb? What kind of issues do you have in your life? What do you mean don't pay attention to it? We all care about how people care about us. I mean, a person tells me, well, I really don't care what they think. I have a hard time really believing they're authentic, because I do care. And you know why I care? Because I care for people. And if you care for people, you care what they think. Because you, Rachel, spend your entire life trying to make people's life better. That's what you do. You try to add value to people every day. And when somebody doesn't add value to you, you do a turn. You go, whoa, I got whiplash here. What happened? I'm just trying to help people. That's the game I'm playing is I'm trying to help people, and obviously this person doesn't like it. I mean, it's kind of like if I robbed a bank, I know I would be criticized, but I'm not robbing a bank. I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to do the right thing. But here's what I've discovered, and I just want you to go to the bank on this. And here's what I know. I know this for sure. If you're really growing and helping people and developing your life and finding your purpose and your God calling and reaching your potential, you will never have a day that you won't be criticized. You will never have a day that there's not someone who will want to take you and bring you back down in the basket. It's a fact of life. So, I'm not calloused by it. I still care. But I'm also not distracted by it. And this is the key. Nehemiah said, I am building a wall.
Yeah.
I can't come down. I'm so sorry. And here's the key. If you're doing something so big, what the little people say won't distract you, because you're so in love with the wall that you're building that you just say, I can't come down today. I'm building a wall.
Yeah.
The Rachel Hollis podcast is produced by me, Rachel Hollis. It's edited by Andrew Weller and Jack Noble.
Imagine what's possible in your business career when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format is available in select business programs and lets you learn at a time and pace that works for you. That means you don't have to put your life on hold while earning your business degree. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.